Guys, welcome back to another episode in the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We have an amazing special guest with us today, Garrett Unclebach. How you doing?
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to whatever discussion we have today. So.
Garrett, let's say that you're granted like a huge billboard to everybody in Frisco. Recording. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode in the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We have an amazing special guest with us today, Garrett Unclebach. How you doing? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing so blessed.
Likewise, man. Likewise. I'm just blessed that you're here with Chris and I, and you're going to be serving to our audience and listeners. I know we got a lot of good stuff to talk about, so I appreciate you coming on the show and your time.
Appreciate you guys, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to whatever discussion we have today. So
right on. And Chris and I, we'll keep it interesting since we're co-hosts and stuff, and we'll throw in some humor and stuff. We'll make this fun for the listeners. So
I'm not the humor guy. I'm the serious guy. I married humor. Don't expect that from me. If I do make you laugh, it's probably unintentional. So,
gotcha. No, I was gonna say it's rare that I've seen you like laugh or crack jokes like at the Mighty Men stuff. So I totally got that. Cool, man. So let's kick this off. I want the listeners to get a better idea of who you are and just get to know you a little bit better before we get into a conversation. So let's start off with rapid dynamic questions. Where were you born and raised? And I know where you currently live, but for the listeners, where are you currently living?
Yeah, I live in Prosper, which is just north of Frisco, Texas. I was born in Denison, which is about an hour north of here. The only thing significant about Denison is I'm pretty sure it was the same birthplace as President Eisenhower. But it's small town. We moved to Frisco 2003 or 2004 to start a church, which is Elevate.
Yep. Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Garrett, let's say that you're granted like a huge billboard that everybody in Frisco could see. What would that billboard say?
Ooh, it would depend on who I was wanting to see that billboard, but I can guarantee you it would be something along the lines of keep going or don't quit or don't give up, because I would say one of my life messages for people is I want them to be energized, but I also want them to understand how much of life is out there. One of my missions in life, is for me to live as much life as possible and help other people live as much life as possible, which kind of jumps into, this is a good place to jump into this. There's two things that I heard often growing up that I would say I would say this is like the infinite potential unlock for me. Pastor Keith said this to me, before he was Pastor Keith, he was Uncle Keith to me, and I honor him for who he is, but that was the role he had early in my life before he ever started a church. But Pastor Keith and my father both said two things to me when I was young, all growing up. That first thing is that God has a plan for your life. So whether you believe in God or not, knowing that there's a purpose for you to be on this earth is a powerful thing. And I heard that, when I was 5 years old. That doesn't mean anything when you're 5 years old, but you keep hearing it and you keep hearing it. And that's a message for parents too, by the way. Your kids don't always understand what you say when they're young, but they do remember. And I remember hearing that far before I understood it. And as I got older and older, I start to believe, okay, maybe there is a plan for my life. And I kind of compare it to, I love 80s movies, great 80s movie. Hopefully I'm not wrong. I'm pretty sure it's an 80s movie, The Sandlot.
Yeah.
Benny the Jet spends his whole life preparing for the pickle. And that's kind of our life. We have pickles that are coming for us. We don't know what it's going to be, but we have to always have that mindset of that there's a reason that I'm still here. There's a reason I'm still breathing, and I'm preparing for something. So that first thing is purpose. And then the second thing that I heard from my dad and Pastor Keith as well is that you can have anything you want in your life as long as you're willing to pay the price for it. So that's kind of those two things together in a single word are both purpose and possibility. You guys know this is the year possible for us, but that's something I heard all the time growing up, that your life has a plan and that you can do anything you want to do with your life if you're willing to pay the price for it. So to go back to your original question, if I had to put something on a billboard, I'd figure out how to say what I just said in a few words and put it on a billboard, because that's what's changed my life.
Powerful. Love it, man. And then let's finish the sentence. The world needs more of right now.
The world needs more men. The world needs more leaders.
Yep.
The world needs more selfless people.
Okay. Yep.
And what are 2 skills an entrepreneur should master in 2021?
Let me give the one skill. Okay, I'll give two. I'll give two, but they're similar. And this is more of a soft skill than it is a hard skill, because a lot of hard skills can be taught, but the skills that I'm about to talk about are very difficult to teach. The first one is resiliency. This is a very popular topic for me, something that I love. People might think that resiliency is similar to confidence, but it's not. I say that confidence is when people believe in me, maybe I believe in me more, or when circumstances say that I'm doing well, I believe that, and I'm pushing really hard while I have momentum. Resiliency is the opposite. It's one of the things that's required to be a SEAL. They really test for this in SEAL training. Resiliency is when nothing is going my way, when no one believes in me, even when people around me or circumstances say you have no chance. Resiliency says, I will keep going. Resiliency is believing in yourself, believing in the words that you choose more than anything else around you. You have to have that, because resiliency is kind of the difference between resiliency and confidence. It's kind of like the difference between success and winning as it relates to an entrepreneur. You'll hear people say, I won the lottery. You'll never hear somebody say, I was successful at the lottery, right? Because winning is luck. Success is consistency. Success is a pattern. And resiliency, in that sense, is a pattern in that these are things that never change about me. These are things that never change about what I believe about myself, about what I believe about the future. So I'd say resiliency is that first thing. And then the second thing is I add this when I do a talk on team. It's called the Foundations of an Unstoppable Team. And that's an acronym that I teach about what makes great teams. And then at the end, I put what I call the secret sauce on there. This was, the entrepreneurs know exactly what I'm talking about when I get there in a second. But this is something that I realized you had to have in the SEAL teams. I think it's also something you have to have as a business owner. You guys are going to relate to this. And the way it was said to me in the SEAL teams, and pardon my French, is they would say, figure it the F out, right? What they're saying is, I don't need to explain this to you. I don't have time to explain it to you. You need to take this impossible task and figure it out. As a business owner, you hear often, and when you manage a lot of employees, it's one of the first frustrations you have is when people come to you and say, nobody told me to do that, or nobody told me how to do that. Well, as an entrepreneur, most especially, not just a business owner, you're often in that position where you're saying, I did this, but nobody told me how to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you'll have that mindset of whatever it is, I can figure it out. And that, I don't mean put yourself in bad situations, but whatever finds you, whatever trouble finds you, that you know, we can do this. We're going to find a way. If I can't figure it out, I'll find the person that can figure it out. It's just an attitude and mentality. And it kind of goes with resiliency. But it's like resilient problem solving is what I would call that second one.
Yeah. Love those, man. Resiliency and figure it out. I mean, geez, powerful. What's a daily mantra that you go by every morning that just helps you just play offense and not defense?
Something that I do every day is I'm grateful for my breath. A lot of people talk about starting with gratitudes. I had the privilege at 23 years old of taking what I thought was my last breath. And not that I want to dive down that rabbit trail, but when you get that and you continue to breathe, you realize that every breath after that is a privilege. And some people, everyone kind of reconciles their mortality at different ages. This is a theory that I have. I've noticed in people from other countries, struggling countries, that have reconciled that mortality at a very young age, or people that have seen their parents die or something like that at a very young age. It matures them a lot differently than some people who not until their 40s or 50s or 60s come to terms with their mortality and realize that life isn't slowing down and it's not getting any longer. So.
Yeah. And that's, man. I don't know, that just gave me the chills, Garrett. Yeah. I don't know if you know our story, but I'll tell it really quick. We lost our dad at 17 years old, 3 nights before Christmas senior year. And we went down a dark path, man. So I can relate to where it's we've been given a different pair of lens to where it's we live every day like it's our last, we don't take it for granted. So I appreciate you saying that. So kind of to wrap this dynamic questions up, what is something that you fear the most these days?
I would tell you, I don't live with fear, but I do have some constant concerns. Another thing Pastor Keith said that stuck with me my entire life. This isn't theology, it's more philosophy. He doesn't say this often. Again, it's not theology, it's more philosophy, but it's that the greatest sin that you can commit is not living up to your God-given potential.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I take very seriously. And it's, again, living the way that we've talked about, making sure that every breath matters, that every day matters. That's something I say to my coaching clients often, is that every day matters. So living with that. Give me the question again one more time.
So like what's like one of the biggest worries you have these days?
Yes, thank you. And the other thing is something that I live by, a scripture that I hold very dear, Proverbs 22:1. A good name is worth more than silver and gold. The SEAL teams and life has shown me how important reputation is. So that's another thing. Again, not a fear, but a concern that I have. It's those things that you need to always be aware of, right? Don't be afraid of it, but always be aware of it. Don't let it slip your mind. And that's making sure that everything I do is done with integrity, that everything I do guards my reputation.
Yeah.
It's not about me. The reputation is not about me. Reputation can be a selfish thing. But when you look at influence as an opportunity to help people, you don't ever want to do anything to damage your influence.
Yeah.
And so I take reputation very seriously.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you only get one reputation, so it's like, make it good. So let's shift gears, Garrett. I want the listeners to hear about just like the whole like experience with you becoming a Navy SEAL, and just, mad respect, man, just, for just going through that. I can't even imagine. So can you take like the listeners through just like briefly, like what was the experience like? And my hope for this is for them to just really understand just, number one, your resiliency and, why you never gave up, and just like the mindset behind it and just some of the outcomes. And I'll ask some questions going into that, but yeah, wherever you can lead us with this would be great.
Sure. I guess I'll start with, this could go a lot of different directions. So I'll just start telling the story, and we'll see what rabbit trail I jumped down.
Okay.
So I joined the Navy at 19 years old. For a long time, I had wanted to be a pilot. I thought I wanted to be a pilot. And then my senior year in high school, I've always loved space, love astronauts, love everything about it. I was watching YouTube videos of a guy who's a hero for me, the first guy, Joseph Kittinger, jumped from outer space. While I was watching that video, and a suggested link on the side was Navy SEALs halo jumping. And this is like, this is back, 2007, 2008. YouTube looked a lot different back then, and I can still see,
yeah,
I can still see that picture of YouTube in my mind. But it suggested a video of Navy SEALs halo jumping to me. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool, because I was watching a video of a guy jumping from outer space. Anyways, clicked on that video, saw Bud's Class 234 Discovery Channel documentary. Started the first episode and watched all 4.5 hours right there. If you've never seen it, it's worth watching, even though it's pretty old at this point. A lot of things haven't changed. Some things have changed, but a lot of things haven't changed since they filmed that documentary. And as soon as I saw that, I knew that I no longer wanted to be a pilot. I can tell you now why that enticed me. I didn't know then. So fast forward, and I'll come back to this point, but fast forward, first 5 years I was in the Navy, I never even went on a date. I was just super focused on my job. I was young. I was pouring my life into this, and I saw a reward for that. The few things I did with my free time was I spent time helping mentor other students to become SEALs. And the reason that was important to me was because normally for the training program of becoming a SEAL, there are SEAL mentors stationed all over the country to help guys who are trying to go down that road. Well, the guy who was a SEAL mentor for North Texas at the time that I went in was deployed. So the first SEALs I ever met were my instructors. People message me on Instagram all the time asking for help, and I love helping those guys. Besides ministry, it's the one thing I do for free is helping guys in that lane. If that's what they want to do, it's my opportunity to give back to my community. But anyways, coming back to mentoring these guys, when you do something, you learn a little bit about it, but when you start teaching to somebody else, that's when you really learn something.
Yes.
Right. And as I started mentoring these other guys, I realized for them the question that I had been asking. And this is something that I say, every man is asking himself the same question. And that question is, am I who I think that I am? Because we all think something about ourselves. We all believe something about ourselves, but men love a challenge. Men seek to be tested. They want to know if who they think they are is really who they are. right? And so buds for me and for a lot of people, and I joined the Navy for many reasons, one of them being that I just wanted to serve this country. But I chose the SEAL program specifically because I figured if I'm gonna put my life at risk, I might as well put my life at risk next to some of the best that are out there. But also I loved what I learned at that point watching that video, that this is one of the hardest military training programs in existence. And I believed myself the type of person that could do that, but I wanted to know the answer to that question. So that's what got me in at a young age. So joined the Navy at 19. I was one of 2 or 3, I think, in my buds class to actually finish that was under 20 years old. Most guys who go through that program go through it at a little bit older age just because of the level of maturity.
Yeah.
And I would say that I was a average or above average athlete in high school, not an amazing athlete. But when I showed up to, got through boot camp, made it to pre-buds and getting into the SEAL training pipeline, I was very quickly in the bottom third athletically. Man, there were guys in my class who were Olympians, guys sponsored. There was a runner in my class who was sponsored by Adidas. You had so many D1 athletes, and I quickly realized I was on a physical level somewhat out of my depth. But in a different capacity, the more I talked to people, to some of the students around me, I realized I did believe that I still had an advantage. And that advantage is in the way that you think. When I work with students now, when they ask me about workouts, I just tell them flat out, I'm not the guy for that. There's a lot of people out there doing training programs to prep you physically. I don't want to spend the time or the effort on that. I care a lot more about mental performance. It's what I live my life focused on today. One of the things, besides, coming from an amazing family like I did, besides having a teacher and mentor like Pastor Keith and some other great leaders in my life that spoke into me, that helped me think in a very different way from a young age, an amazing advantage. Another thing that I caught young that really, I would say set me up for success going into that program. My favorite movie. I love movies. One day I will have a massive theater in my house that's better than any movie theater, because I just really love the movie experience. I love getting pulled into something. So anyways, my favorite movie of all time, you can laugh if you want, is The Matrix. There's so many great parallels in that movie. I have a great book that talks about all the philosophical veins that are in that movie, but an amazing lesson from The Matrix. This is what I caught when I was 12 years old the first time watching it. You remember in the movie, you guys have seen it, right?
Yep, seen it, yeah.
Remember in the movie, and this is just the easiest part, remember in the movie when Trinity says she needs a patch for a helicopter, and she gets it within like 5 seconds, and now she's a helicopter pilot. What clicked for me was the difference between me and a helicopter pilot, the difference between me and a doctor, the difference between me and Tiger Woods physically is nothing. It's all right here. Mm-hmm. And so as important as physical is, and at that point in my life as a teenager, I was spending a lot of time trying to master myself physically. It was the first discipline that I mastered, was working out and things like that. When I watched that movie, I was like, that's not really worth very much, right? Even Neo in the movie fighting Morpheus, he was only able to fight Morpheus because he got all this download into his brain, right? So it showed me 2 things. One, how important the mind is. Mm-hmm. The body can't go where the mind can't take it. But more than that was, it made me want to be a hyper learner. Is it possible yet to learn how to fly a helicopter in 5 seconds? No, not yet. Maybe Elon Musk or somebody will make something like that happen, who I didn't even know of at that point. But what I did take away from that as well was, what if I could maybe I can't learn how to fly a helicopter or do a certain thing in 5 seconds, but what if I can just do it faster? If all of this stuff in the world that becomes valuable skills is like software, so to speak, what if I can just download software faster? Mm-hmm. And so at a young age, I began to realize how much of life was just a mental perspective. And it gave me a desire for learning in a different way. I did all right in school, but I did all right in school without trying. If I had applied myself, I would have done exceptional. But I was obsessed with learning and learning as fast as I could. So that's something as well going into SEAL training. Looking at my peers, I was like, okay, these guys are way beyond me physically, but I have some advantages mentally, and it did help me get through.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So let me ask you this, Garrett. So you had the competitive advantage going into like the SEALs, right? Because of a great family, your father, Scott, and then, Pastor Keith as well too. So you had that, like the mental kind of like advantage, right? And then you went through the SEALs. So I guess my question is like, what is kind of the competitive advantage you have now when you had that mental, competitive advantage at that early age and all of the kind of experience and stuff that you went through as a SEAL training? How has that carried over into your life right now?
How's what part carried over? What I learned from the SEALs or competition? Yeah, ask it again.
So both. So like the competitive advantage from like you having that like mental competitive advantage early on from your upbringing and Pastor Keith, and tying that in with like, your SEAL training all those years and experience.
Yeah, I would just say for me on competition, competition is somewhat natural. It's nature and nurture. I have a very natural competitive desire. If you knew me as a teenager, and you can talk to some of the people from church and ask them about it, and they'll laugh telling you stories. I was that guy as a teenager that's like, dude, this is just a game. Stop taking it like I was the one who made it unfun for everyone else because I hated losing. And maturity teaches you to value the right things. There was a time after going through SEAL training, there was a time even when I thought, okay, am I still as competitive as I used to be? Quick caveat on that. One of the greatest lessons I got from a SEAL instructor, an instructor I had in BUDS and a SEAL that I have a great amount of respect to and look up to. He called being a SEAL a curse. And I don't know if I might have talked about this at Mighty Men once before, but it's so great. It's not actually a curse, but he's using curse as an analogy. When we were students, as he told the story, he said, in the unlikely event you become SEALs, because even when you're one day away from graduation, they talk to you that way. In the unlikely event you finish training. But what he was saying was, in the unlikely event that you become a SEAL and you get to this point where I am, you'll spend the rest of your life and everyone will want to beat you at anything. Doesn't matter if you're playing ping pong, people want to measure themselves against you. They just want to beat you at something. And he said that can be a curse for you. That can drive you crazy, or it can continue to push you further and further and further in life. And that's an acceptance of pressure. Do you want that pressure? And SEALs are required to be pressure performers. Almost every day in BUDS, the 6-month SEAL training process, you've done all this work, but almost every day there's a test where they say, okay, if you fail this, you go home. And if you do that every day for 6 months, the only people who are left standing at the end are the people who show up when it matters.
Yeah.
I forget where I was going with that, but the curse is a great lesson. But with the curse, I tell people, okay, even if you're not a SEAL, I would say, what pressure are you living under? You can look at pressure as a bad thing, or you can look at pressure as something that makes you better. What curse do you carry? In that context, I also look at being a Christian as a curse. Not in the negative standpoint, but everyone is looking at me all the time. People are judging you. People are watching you. And you can take that negative, you can make it, have you be afraid to expose yourself, or you can say, I'll use this pressure to be the best version of myself that I can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So even too, I want to just kind of like go back to like just when you were in the SEAL training and just like the whole thing of resiliency is just what made you just not give up? Because so many people, I think you've mentioned it, so many people drop out of it to where it's I can't even imagine how intense it is, man. But like, what made you just be like, nope, I'm not giving up. Like no matter what, like I have to just keep doing this, keep battling every day.
Yeah, it's a great question. I will say that's a $100 million question. There's multiple universities that have ongoing studies on the SEAL training program, trying to figure out what makes a SEAL. How can we quit wasting all this time and effort on other people who look like good candidates and then quit on day one, right? Because if on paper, I would not have looked as good as some of the other students.
Sure.
I went on to do well. Some of the other people, there were people in my class that's like, man, that guy has no chance. Went on to become a great SEAL. Yep. And there were people in my class who are like, man, what an all-star. There was a guy in my class, I'll never forget him. And I'm not afraid to say his name because it's a part of my life. His name was Lash. He was the #1 athlete in our class. His father was a SEAL. And he was my roommate through SEAL prep. And nearly every day, and I was at the bottom third athletically, which being a SEAL is not about being an athlete, but they did measure you that way. I was in the bottom third athletically. Lash was number one in the class because they would rank you on run, swim, strength, all that stuff. He was in the room next to me for months. And he would say every day, you have no chance here. Tell me that all the time. His father was a Navy SEAL. This guy's an amazing athlete. He was 5 or 6 years older than me. And he continued to say that to me over and over again. He was one of the first people to quit in my buds class. He was number 2 or number 3 to quit. When he quit, I remember thinking, that was a little bit of a click for me. When you finally get there, because you've watched Discovery Channel, because you've put it on such a pedestal, and I can't even imagine what it feels like to be a student now. Because I joined the Navy in 2010. Now SEALs have so much more clout and hype around them. But when I was there, when I finally got on the Buds grinder, I felt like I was on a reality TV show almost. And when those first guys started quitting, my self-talk reminded me that, okay, I can do this. That guy's a way better athlete than me, but he quit, which kind of comes to the question of why do people quit? Right. And if we can answer why do people quit, we can also answer the question you asked me: how did I make it through? How did I not quit? Right? People take a good athlete that you guys, for example, y'all are good athletes. You could make it through the first day of Buds. Where people quit is, just day one, for example. The instructors finally quit, hazing you and doing everything to you, maybe around 7 or 8 that night, sometimes even 9 or 10. Then you have all these collateral duties to do. They make you sweep the grinder and polish brass and all this other stuff just to take up your time. Then you finish that maybe 11:30 at night. Your class officer, the OIC, he's a student, but he's the student that's in charge of the class. He'll gather everybody together, tell everyone the plan of the day for tomorrow, and let you know that we've got to be back out here at 3:30 in the morning to get ready for the 4-mile timed run on the beach at 4 a.m. It's 11:30 at night. I got to get up at 3:30, and I have another hour to hour and a half of cleaning of my own equipment. I got to go clean some of my own stuff that got dirty today to get ready for tomorrow. And when people quit, when they say, they don't say I can't do this again tomorrow. They say, I can't do this for 179 more days, right? And it's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time,
Yep.
Which kind of comes back to the Navy SEAL Big Four. One of those is segmentation. And that's just saying, I don't have to do this for 179 more days. I just have to do it right now.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's one, to answer your question, how did I get through? That's one of the things that got me through. Another one is that resiliency factor. Some of that is natural. Some of it is learned. Anything that you don't have naturally in life that you want, well, it starts with knowing what it is and wanting it and saying, I'm going to possess this thing. Even if I wasn't naturally given resiliency, I can possess it. So that resiliency for me was also the Proverbs 22:1, like I talked about, reputation and respect for myself. When I first joined the Navy, I told no one. My parents like to tell this story. They got a letter. I left them a note. When getting into the military, you go through a thing called MEPS. They do like a medical screener on you, and it's an overnight. You're not joining the military that day, but you go get a medical screener and then can sign your contract. I left them a note saying, hey, I'll be back in the morning, and this is where I am.
I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, dude, come on. I was literally watching this video, watching this interview, and you literally just pop up on the screen and interrupt it. Trust me, there's a good reason for this. Just hold on, and I'm gonna let you get back to that interview or that video. Trust me, all right? So the reason why I stopped you on this is because we're giving away our book 100% free. Okay, so if you're a frustrated fitness professional, you're not growing fast enough, you're looking to future-proof and recession-proof your business by adding online training, or if you're doing online training, you want to scale and grow faster, all you have to do is check out our new book. We're giving the audio away, we're giving the PDF away. So all you have to do is click the link below in the description box and get your free copy. All right, so now back to the video.
I'm joining the military. I'm going through the medical screener. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm shipping out to join in a couple months. So I made that decision all by myself, and that was because I didn't want it to be anybody else's decision.
Right.
And I knew that my parents, I do believe very much so, like the word says, in the multitude of counselors, there is wisdom. But that was a decision that I had to make for my own life. And my parents, as much as they love me, would have discouraged me from doing it. And my father even talks about, he's like, you're right, I would have tried to talk you out of it as much as I could have. Now he's certainly proud of me and happy for me, but no parent wants to see their child go through that. Yep. It's also a very hard thing to push your child towards, right? And one of the hardest things on the planet for a 19-year-old. Yeah, sure. Go do that, son. So there's that, the respect, the reputation, and then also kind of in that same vein, my relationship with my father. A thing that I talk about, I call it internal audience, external audience. And some of my tough moments, on the beach, so to speak, in the SEAL training, you have an external audience, when you're playing basketball, when Larry Bird would play, he's playing for everybody in the stadium. But Larry Bird also had a reputation for showing up to practice hours before everyone and hours after everyone would leave, right? And he talked about how he was playing, even though no one was in the stands. In his mind, everyone was still there. That's a discipline deal, right?
Wow.
What you do when nobody's watching. People have a different internal audience. You can have different internal audiences in different contexts. As a believer, you should have an internal audience with Christ. But I also had an internal audience with my father. I have a great relationship with my father. He's my hero, my teacher, learned all that from him at a young age. And so even though he wasn't there at 19 years old on the beach, I would, first time I told him this story, I had tears in my eyes, but I would tell him as I was going through training in some of my toughest moments, I could see him out there on the beach watching me. And so the point I was making there earlier too was I told no one when I joined, but right before I left, I told everyone, right? I backed myself into a corner, so to speak, if I just told everyone in my life, this is what I'm going to do. And there's a lot of reasons that I joined, but sometimes when it's tough, there's only a few reasons that'll keep you from quitting. I had a lot of reasons to keep me from quitting. And sometimes I was only holding on to one or two of them. Sometimes I was just holding on to seeing my father on the beach. Sometimes I was just holding on to, because it's hard. You can sign up, you can aspire to do some things for a lot of good reasons. It doesn't mean the reasons aren't true. But in the pain, in the emotion, a lot of those things will get a lot quieter and all you can hear is the pain. And so it's better to have as many reasons as possible. One of those reasons being, I just told everyone in my life, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to go home and have to tell all these people that I'm not a man of my word.
Yeah. Whew, man.
That's just a few of them. If you ask other SEALs that question, at least one of the things that I said would be a common denominator for them. Guys had different reasons for sure.
Yeah. I mean, those are great, Garrett. I mean, you answered those perfectly, man. So I appreciate you just like opening up about all those things.
Yeah. All right, Garrett. So I want to switch gears to kind of talking about living a spirit-led life and mighty men, right? Yeah. Because I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before that we have an honor to like literally be able to show up every Saturday and be led by you, Pastor Josh, your father. I mean, even Scott Josh Lushua, who's our leader in our group. I mean, it's amazing, man. We don't take it, for granted one bit. So my question is just like, what is kind of like the vision with like mighty men so the listeners can understand what that is and why is it so important to have like a community like this?
Yeah. Cause even earlier you mentioned the world needs more men. So ties in perfectly with this.
Yeah, man, that's a long question. Could go a lot of different ways with that. I'll start with what you finished with. Why does the world need more men?
Mm-hmm.
I talk about, you guys hear me say it often, what's the number one weapon that the enemy is using against men in this world? And that's passivity, right? Because God created men to be leaders. And when men don't lead, it causes problems. You can read all through the Bible when men fail to do their job, when they don't follow orders, when they don't do what's required of man, bad things happen. And so if we had more men in this world that were great leaders, we would have a lot better world that we live in. And it all starts with ourselves. But to get to what mighty men is, mighty men comes from the story of David in the Bible, 1 and 2 Samuel. In the Hebrew, mighty men is Gabor Hayal, which means mighty men of valor. So sometimes in the Bible, it uses the word mighty men, but whenever it talks about David's mighty men, it calls them mighty men of valor. And who these men were just the men that followed David, as David was God's man on the earth at that time, who said, we're going to do God's work with you. They were committed as a group of people to do whatever it took to serve their leader and to serve God's mission for them. What is a mighty man? It's a path of discipleship. And when I preach this word, it takes me 45 minutes to explain it. I wish I could do it quicker, but I'll summarize. The New Testament version of being a mighty man is about being a great disciple. But also what a mighty man is it's a man who's mission focused. And that's a book I'd love to write one day about mission focus. It's still a concept that I'm defining better and better. I'm in no hurry to publish books. I've got a lot of life in front of me. If I want a book to last for a long time, I don't need to rush it out the door.
Yep.
That's my own advice to myself, not for other people. But mission focus is really living with the context of the two things I talked about earlier. My life has a purpose, and I can do anything I want in my life as long as I'm willing to pay the price for it. But you have to define that. And those great things, like being a mighty man, you read about these men in the Old Testament. They committed their entire life to something. And we live in the age now of the overnight success. We live in the age of the self-made man. Both of those things are a lie. Mighty man is really more about living and committing to a principle-based life where I'm going to do the right thing no matter what. I'm not going to seek reward. I'm going to seek virtue. I'm going to seek principle. I'm going to seek purpose.
Yep.
So that's like a 30-second answer for a long question.
Yeah.
Did you wanted me to talk more about the spirit as well?
Yeah, just kind of like why a man or why anybody should just kind of like lead their life with like spirit, spirit-led life.
Yeah. So I'll frame this in a context where even if you're not somebody who believes in God, that this you might get some value out of this. There's a lot of people, religious people and non-religious people, who will agree that as humans, human creatures, we're different than every other creature on the earth. And we are a creature that is spirit, soul, and body. Let me get into body is pretty easy to understand. Don't need to explain that. Your soul is your mind, will, and emotions. It's that your mind, will, and emotions. It's your unique way of thinking. It's your personality. As Pastor Keith says, your divine fingerprint, right? Yep. What's unique about you. And then the spirit. So scripture that I love and live by, 2 Timothy 1:7. This is a scripture that I used to help teach this principle. God did not give you a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and love and a sound mind. Now, when you study the Bible, it wasn't written in English back then, so it's good to go to the original language. That scripture was written originally in Greek. So where it says God did not give you a spirit, that word in the Greek is pneuma. What does pneuma mean? Pneuma means breath of life. Okay, where does that come from? It goes all the way back to Genesis. Genesis 2, 6, and 7. Sorry, it takes me a second to go there. Genesis 2, 6, and 7. And it says, and God formed Adam with his own hand and breathed into him the breath of life, right? That wasn't just oxygen. The creator of this universe breathed a piece of himself into each one of us, and that's our spirit. So living spirit, soul, and body, the spirit is what's unique about us. My dog does not have a spirit. I love my dog, but it does not have a spirit. God did not breathe himself into other animals, but he breathed himself into us. And so living spirit, soul, and body is first living with the awareness of what you are. It's very hard to exist without understanding what you are and what your identity is. But living spirit, soul, and body, again, a long conversation, but when you can understand what each of those things are and live spirit first by connecting with your spirit, which is what God breathed into you, connecting with God through your spirit, and understanding that your spirit touches your soul. When we draw the circles, spirit on the inside, the next circle is soul, the next circle is body. All of those touch each other. Your spirit touches your soul, and your soul influences your body, and vice versa. The things we absorb externally, if we allow them to, can impact our spirit. People that, again, if you don't believe in God, people often feel like there's a level of emptiness, and they go on a spiritual journey. Maybe they don't want to believe in God. They've had an experience that's told them otherwise. They grew up in a home that made them believe that there is no God, but we have this desire to seek further in ourselves. What else is there? There's got to be something more. Why does life even exist? All of those are questions that start with us, which leads me to a great book. If you don't believe in God, but you want to read a book that might talk a little bit more about this or send you on that journey of discovery. And you guys might ask me at the end, I'm not sure what books I recommend, but one of them is Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, yeah,
by Viktor Frankl.
Yep.
And what he talks in there about is the question, what is the meaning of life? A lot of people ask, they ask the world that question, what is the meaning of life? But Viktor said that life is asking us that question. It is our job to answer that question, what life means. But man, that's a hard question to get in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But living spirit, soul, and body, I gave the framework of where that comes from. And again, even if you don't believe in God or believe that the Bible is true and is the manifest mind of God, there's a lot of truth there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And no, thanks again, Garrett. And the reason why too, when we were, just thinking about like just asking some questions here in this conversation, Chris and I have been putting this out there a little bit more just to our audience about us becoming more spirit led and just everything, but it's just small doses. But I want the listeners to just understand, like someone that's just, way more ahead, understands just like there's this really just educated behind it about the spirit led life. So I appreciate you just breaking down that framework.
Yeah. And the spirit led life, again, man, the Bible is a long manual for how to live. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that comes out of that, and this is in the Bible, not in one scripture, but in this whole story of the Bible, is what I think, and this is take home value for people who believe in the Bible and for people who don't. What is the biggest paradigm shift? There's evidence of this in anyone's life that you look at. What's the biggest in my opinion, what's the biggest paradigm shift that'll just totally change the trajectory and the meaning of your life? When you make life about you, mm-hmm. life gets harder and harder and harder. People are against you. Things don't go your way, and you just get angry. When you make life all about other people, life gets easier and easier and easier. Life is more and more exciting. More and more people are your friend, and more people are for you. It's a perspective change, right? You can be in a great amount of pain under a great amount of pressure. But when you say, I get the joy of this, I get the joy of this experience, of this trouble, so that I can serve others, it changes the context. Evidence of that. This goes back to the question earlier. I'm sorry that I haven't made this connection in Mighty Men, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. Guys who make it through SEAL training. This is an answer you'd get from a lot of other SEALs. Why did they not make it? Guys in SEAL training who are focused on themselves and their own pain often quit. But when most of SEAL training is an experience at a minimum with a buddy or a swim buddy. Oftentimes it's an experience with your boat crew, a group of 6 people, sometimes 5, sometimes 7, but most of the time 6. And when guys in training at their toughest moments quit thinking about themselves and start making sure that John, the guy right next to him, that he's taken care of, mm-hmm. that's when they keep going. Great analogy for that. You guys are brothers, but you're the same age. Do y'all have older brothers or younger brothers?
Yeah, older brother. He's 5 years older.
Okay. Older brother, for example, at 10 years old, you go to take the trash out, right? And at night, and you're scared of the dark, and you run out real quick and, throw the trash in, run back in really fast. The first time as an older brother, you take your younger brother to take out the trash. You say, hey, everything's going to be all right. You don't need to be afraid because I'm here. Did not change that 10-year-old's fear of the dark, but it changed the context and the perspective of how he looked at that situation, because he was no longer worried about himself, but he was worried about somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Powerful, man.
And I'll never forget that day too at Rudy's when you talked about that, because that was a real big kind of like game changer for us too. Stop like making it all about yourself and make it about other people to serve them,
Absolutely.
If life is about you, then it's, again, as Pastor Keith says, get all you can all you get, and sit on the can. And that is a miserable experience. There's a lot of people with a lot of money or a lot of anything, but when it's about you, there's no joy in life. And again, back to what Mighty Men is what a brother is. I was telling Josh Lashua, your leader, who is my brother-in-law, is married to my sister. I was telling him the other day how great of a brother he is, because he does 2 things. He carries weight on the journey, and he makes the journey a better experience. Yeah, that's what a brother is. Those are the type of people you need in your life, are brothers. You don't need buddies. Buddies are drinking buddies. Buddies are the ones who will watch you wreck your life and not get in your way. But brothers will do all they can to keep you from wrecking your life. And men, most especially, are good at getting themselves into trouble. But when we're open, when we're honest, when we have intimacy with other men in our lives, in that context as brothers, that's when, and David had that, by the way, if you read his story in 1 and 2 Samuel, that's when life gets a lot better. And that's also when we stay on the path.
Absolutely.
Amen to that, man. So Garrett, let's talk about your lifestyle. I just want to just know more about just like, morning routine. Like Chris and I are big morning routine guys. Again, priming our mind to play offense, not defense. And I want to know about your morning routine and kind of just walk us through a day in the life of Garrett Unclebach.
Yeah. So it starts before the process. It starts with a mindset of another great Pastor Keithism. The best thing that you can give other people is a healthy you.
Mm-hmm.
In the SEAL teams, they helped me understand that you're not doing anybody any favors by getting shot, right? Like you think like, oh man, I risked myself. I put myself out there for the guys now sometimes things happen outside of your control, but when you're an idiot, when you put yourself at risk in an unnecessary way or make decisions in the wrong context and get yourself hurt, you're not doing anybody any favors.
Yep.
And nobody likes a martyr. Nobody needs a martyr. So where that foundational process lies is understanding that the first thing I have a job to lead other men. I have a job to lead and care for my family, but I can't do any of that if I don't care for myself.
Absolutely.
Right? So the first things I do every morning are, and depending on I normally get up around 4, somewhere between 3:45 and 4:30, just depending on my day. That's about as much flex as I have. And that's 7 days a week, by the way, which the reason for that is circadian rhythm. I'm not a health expert. I'm not a health professional, but I am a amateur studier of science and understanding what's best, because for me, everything is focused on performance. If I want to be the best version of myself, I have to be a great performer. That starts with my health. I go to bed at nearly the same time every day. If those of you who are understanding or asking, how do I get up early? How do I become an early riser? Well, your day starts tomorrow starts tonight.
Yes.
Right. And how I finish with my reflections at night, being intentional about going to bed and going and closing my eyes with that last thought that I want to wake up with in the morning. But for me, I think the question you're asking is, how do I live and what are some habits and processes for me? It's getting up early. It's winning the day. I do something hard immediately when I wake up. So I'll walk through the process real quick. So I wake up, I'm going to spend some time in the Word and in prayer early in the morning. And it's prayer and meditation for me. Prayer is time with the Lord. Meditation is time with myself.
Yep.
You need to do both. Then I'm either going, depending on, I like to do hot works. That's getting in an IR sauna. It's a place here in Frisco that does it. And you do yoga or yoga type workouts. I'll do that and then come home and get in the ice bath. Or if I'm going to go to the gym and lift weights, I'll get in the ice bath first and then go to the gym because I'm going to warm up at the gym. And if I do ice bath at gym, then I come home and I'll cold shower as well. It's good to finish on ice. I won't run down that science, but the ice bath is a big deal for me because of how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
I love Wim Hof. I think Wim Hof is awesome. I intentionally don't use his methods in the ice bath because I'm not trying to make the ice easier. To me, it is a ice baptismal. I get in there every morning as a sacrifice. I get in there every morning choosing pain. And when you do that, if you do something, what I like about it is it's so hard, but it really only takes, 3 to 10 minutes, depending on how long I'm going to stay in there. And I stay in there longer on the day. I have this conversation with myself, which are very important, the conversations you have with yourself. But I have this conversation with myself in the morning. If I just get up and run there, I'll only stay in the ice bath for 2 or 3 minutes. But the more I fight it, the more I'm saying, you don't have to do it today, or, no one will know if you don't. Those are the days I end up in there for 10 minutes, almost as a punishment of myself. But every time, and this is life, every time you do those hard things, you get out of it and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. I've not got out of the ice bath one time and said like, I don't know if I need to keep doing this.
Yeah.
I have that conversation before I get in, but every time when I get out, I'm like, that was a great choice. And if you'll do something that hard early in the day, you will win the rest of your day.
Yep.
I know if I do that, that's the hardest thing I'm going to do all day. And I do a lot of hard things, but if I'll make that extremely uncomfortable choice that early when no one's watching, I know that for the rest of my day, anything that comes my way is going to be easy compared to that, which is also goes back to a philosophy of mine. Not really a philosophy. This is just being smart, is doing the hard things first. Hey, those guys who go to the gym after work, I respect you. I'm not saying that you can't do it that way, but I would much rather do those most important things and those most difficult things early in the day. People talk a lot about time budget, but you also have to be, you guys have heard me talk about this. I think you have to be aware of your energy budget.
Yes.
Right? You only have so much personal energy. You only have so much willpower. Do those things that require the most willpower early in the morning.
Yeah. 100%.
So that's a big philosophy for me. And then diet. I like to intermittent fast a lot for the purpose of autophagy. Again, won't jump into the science there, and I'm not qualified to talk about it. But getting that 18-hour window of fasting gets you into autophagy. Part of my, again, back to what I want out of my life, and knowing what you want is important, but doing as much with my life as possible. Well, that also means I need to live as long as possible, right? Because I don't want to run hard and die early. So I'm trying to live healthy for as long as possible. So autophagy from intermittent fasting is going to help you live longer. Also will fight cancer. And then the diet that I live on. Again, not an expert. I'll quit saying that, but I think the keto diet is the number one anti-cancer and the number one anti-neurodegenerative disease diet. So I do that as well.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Have you ever heard of Dr. Dom D'Agostino? He's one of the leading researchers out in Florida on the keto diet.
No, but I'll certainly look him up.
Yeah, he was on the Tim Ferriss show and Joe Rogan show.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure it's good. Yeah. I like both of those guys. My wife gives me the Spark Notes on Joe Rogan because I don't have time to listen to all of his podcasts. Because they're so long, but they are really interesting, and you can catch highlights on YouTube. And I like Tim Ferriss a lot. I've been a fan of him since he, right when he wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. That was before he was as huge as he is now.
Yeah.
I liked that book, and everything he's done since then. I've followed him, and I appreciate one of the things I appreciate the most about Tim is really just his energy and luster for life. He's just searching for more and more life.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that about him.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to send you that interview we did with Dr. Dom D'Agostino. But Garrett, like you said something about just living longer, right? So this is a perfect kind of segue into this question. So I'm going to go a little bit deep on you. Let's say that you only had 5 years to live. What would you stop doing right now?
That's a question I ask myself all the time. I have a coach in my life who asked me that 2 days ago. He said, are you doing anything that you shouldn't be doing right now? I'd like to say that I'm not doing anything right now that I shouldn't be doing, but that is a question that I ask myself every day. Another question that I ask myself every day, and I want to make sure I get this in here. This is a question that I started asking myself, and it's now, like when I work with people personally in coaching, this is a question that I start with. It's a discipline question. I think that almost all of success comes down to, and this is in the Bible, is a reflection of discipline and wisdom. Mm-hmm. Most people naturally acquire or naturally one is easier for one than the other. But I will say if you can acquire discipline, you can attain wisdom for sure. But the discipline question. So again, this is a question I ask myself every day, and this is a question I ask all my clients. It's where we start. Say we know where you are today, right? And we know like you have some huge lofty goals for next year or for 10 years from now. And we have in a project management plan, the work breakdown structure. Every single step, it'd be a lot of steps, and this would be a very valuable list, but say we have that perfect work breakdown structure. And life is not this easy, but let's pretend that it is, where we just say, we've got the list of tasks. If we just do everything on this list, we will achieve everything that we want to do. The next question, we've got that. Now let's go into the third person here. And Garrett has to hire somebody in his life to perform every single one of those tasks. We're going to interview people. We're going to look at their life. We're going to look at how they think, and we have to pick someone to walk in our shoes to perform all of those tasks. And the question is, would you hire yourself? And if the answer is no, or if the answer isn't an immediate yes, then you have a discipline problem. We all need more discipline, right? But, for example, people say like, oh, I want to read 12 books this year, right? Well, first off, if you made that goal, it better be for a purpose. And if you make a goal, you should have thought about it, made sure that it's an important thing. And once you've cemented that, you need to do it. but it's March, right? If you want to read 12 books this year, you should be finishing your third by now.
Yep.
But a lot of people still have that goal of reading 12 books for the year, and it's March and they haven't read any. At what point are you going to fire yourself, right? You need to have that duality with yourself where you have those conversations. When I'm working every day, I'm self-employed. I work for myself. And I ask myself, am I working? Would I hire me or would I fire me today for how well I'm working? Mm-hmm. So again, the question of would you hire yourself? That's a question I ask myself every day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest reasons, man. Like we'll drop any type of amount pretty much to invest in coaches and outside eyes to buy that speed, that accountability and all that great stuff. So yeah.
We all need a coach. It's, I tell people I'm like a co-pilot, and funny story, when I would spend all this time with these SEAL students, and after sometimes after 2 months, sometimes after 9 months, they'd all finally ask me, hey, Garrett, do you think I'll make it? And because they all want to know what I think. I've spent a lot of time with them and they think I'm qualified to answer that question. And I would tell them, if my answer means anything to you, then you won't make it. In fact, I have zero impact, or maybe 1% impact on your ability to make it through this training. It's all up to you. What I tell clients when I coach them, I said, hey, look, I'm a co-pilot. You're the driver making all of the inputs. I had the opportunity in the military to go to rally racing school, one of the coolest, funnest experiences, very expensive school. I learned how to drive at the same school that Ken Block learned how to drive at. And you understand the value in rally racing of a co-pilot, someone who's calling out the turns for you, someone who's helping you make the right decisions. That's what a coach is. 99% of the outcome is because of the driver.
Yeah.
But the co-pilot is the one helping you make those great choices, or when you make mistakes, helping you not snowball and get back on the right track quicker and faster, helping you're thinking about the next turn. The co-pilot is making sure that you come out of this turn prepared for the next turn.
Totally.
Yeah. Whew. Powerful, man. Powerful stuff. So Garrett, I know we're coming up on time. I want to be respectful of your time. And I already knew. Yeah. I already knew going into this, we could talk for hours just with you and stuff. So I was really excited. But before I ask the last question and get you out of here, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge you and just, say thank you again. Number one, just for serving our country, just for being an amazing leader to men like myself, Chris, the whole Mighty Men just group. Everything you're doing, man, it's amazing stuff. And I've only had the privilege of just for 4 to 6 months to take all this in, but I look forward to just everything the rest of the year and just more time going forward. So cheers to you and just more success going forward.
Thank you. I'm honored by that. And my encouragement to you would be, as you're not as a podcast guest, but just for a second, as your leader in this journey, is just to be consistent, to stay on the path. Remember the reasons that you got into this. You will. So many people come into this. I had the privilege of seeing it because, I grew up in this. Watch people, they come in with a bunch of fire for 6 months, for 6 years, and then life happens and things change and they start questioning themselves, do I want to do this? Find the things that you believe in the most and don't let anybody take it away from you. If you'll commit to something, again, I got this from my father. He's one of the most consistent people. He's been doing and believing and saying the same things his entire life. If you'll do that, your life will have value. Your life will have meaning. Every time it gets hard, if you quit and go to the next thing, you will find you will get to the end of your life and be very disappointed. But if you'll stick it out, if you'll find that group of people that you're going to do life with, if you'll find that mission that no one can ever take away from you, you'll die happy. And that's really what I'm aiming for and trying to help other people do the same.
Absolutely.
So
I appreciate that. So my last question is, what does it mean for Garrett Unclebach to live a dynamic lifestyle?
Yeah, I feel like that's what we've talked about, but I'll answer the question. For me, it's you asked about competition earlier, and I didn't finish my thought there. For a time, I thought that after the SEAL teams, because everyone's competing with me on everything. I'm always competing with myself. I felt like I wasn't as crazy competitive as I used to be, but I had the awareness that actually I'm not competing with anybody else, but I am competing with myself every day to live as much life as possible. Different conversation, but I have my own personal board of directors. I got that from a friend and author named Joe Sweeney. his number one book is Networking is a Contact Sport. He taught me this concept of having your personal board of directors. It's like a business has a board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
You have one for your life. One of the guys who sits on my board is Forrest Gump. I know that's funny, but what I love about Forrest Gump is he just says, you know what? I'm just going to keep running. I'm just going to keep going. That was some of the philosophy that I had in SEAL training. There's a lot of people here that are better than me. There's a lot of people here that are faster than me. But what I know is that I'm going to stay in the game. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will quit. I know that I won't quit. You can outrun me, but at some point I'm going to pass you because you're going to sit down, because you're going to turn around, and I'll keep going. So that's my philosophy on competition and on life and on living a dynamic lifestyle. I want to just live as much life as possible and help as many people as possible.
Man, I love that. So that's a great way to end this. Keep running and stay in the game. So Garrett, where can the listeners, follow everything that you're doing? I know you're doing some coaching as well too. So where can people learn more about that as well?
Yeah. So I am not in a season right now where, and I'm getting there, where I'm putting myself out there a lot. I've been focused on writing. I've been focusing on my own personal development because, again, for me, I plan on teaching my grandchildren how to ride a motorcycle at 100 when I'm 100 years old. That's a vision that I have for later in my life, and there's a lot of things about what that means. I'm not in a hurry to get myself out there to write books because I want to bring the best of me to everyone else. But so I say that to qualify that there's not a lot of places to connect with me. I don't post on social media or anything like that a lot, but I do love working with people. I do love connecting. And, when you guys ask, I'm like, absolutely sure. I'm not trying to promote myself or anything, but I would love to give value to other people. If you want to connect with me, you can message me on Instagram. I don't post often, but you can find me on Instagram at Garrett Unclebach, my name, or my website, GarrettUnclebach.com. Either of those places you message me, I'll get back to you. I don't really advertise my coaching, even though I did talk about it on the show today. I do a lot of other things, real estate development, leading the men's ministry. I'm a venture capital partner at Fathom Ventures, a group my friend started. Anyways, coaching is maybe 20 or 25% of what I do. And right now, all of my clients are actually just referrals. I haven't spent any ad dollars or anything like that. But if you want to connect with me, if you have questions or if there's a way that I can add value to your life, those are the easiest ways to connect with me. I'd share my phone number or email. I'm not one of those people that is, trying to keep myself from anyone, but GarrettUnclebach.com or Instagram, Garrett Unclebach, you'll find me, message me. I'd love to help anybody that I can.
Perfect. Awesome. So we'll have all that linked up in the show notes, guys. Go take a look and just see what Garrett's doing. And again, just follow him on Instagram and just connect with him. So other than that, Garrett, once again, thank you again, man, just for your time, your wisdom, everything that you delivered today. Thanks, Garrett.
Honor to be here. Thank you, guys.
Right on. Okay, guys, until next time.
Hey, so hopefully you enjoyed that interview with former Navy SEAL Garrett Unclebach. That thing was absolutely amazing, especially how he said that he knew he was going into SEAL training with top elite athletes, right? And guess what his competitive advantage was? Up here. And you can do the same exact thing. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to watch this video right here, how to turn your messes into your messages. Everybody has a unique power and a unique story and a unique gift to share with the world. So that is exactly what I want you to do. Watch this video right here so you can learn how to turn your messages into your messages and inspire other people. Other than that, I'm out. Talk to you soon.